Well, hello, hello. Hi, how's everybody doing today? I thought I would get up on the YouTube, hang out with you all just a little bit more, right? Do a little more work on the blanket. Is anybody else still working on the blanket? If you are, that's great. Maybe you're working on a different blanket. That's totally fine too. That's all good. Or maybe you're somebody who doesn't do blankets in the summertime. And if that's the case, that's totally fine. Well, I just want to say a big thank you to all of my returning viewers and all of my subscribers. Thank you so much for choosing to tune in, choosing to watch, choosing to come back again and again, hang out, spend a little bit of your day with me, right? Your time is valuable. So thank you so much for stopping by, having a little visit, right? A little check in. Yeah. So, if you're new to my channel, hi. My name's May. I love yarn. I love knitting and crochet. Those are my hobbies. And I also happen to have been born visually impaired, legally blind, colorblind. And I knit and crochet by feel. So, I really believe that knitting and crochet and creativity are for everybody, right? You're a returning viewer. You know I say that all the time. Yeah. So say hello in the comment section, right? Let me know where you're watching from. Like, I live in the United States. I'm from Washington State. That's all that you need to, say, right? I don't want your address or anything personal like that, right? Just, state, country, all that. Yeah. So let me know what your whip is, right? We can talk whips 7 days a week, right? We don't just have to talk about whips on Whip Wednesday, because let's face it, we all got whips, right? All the time. One of my whips is always reorganized in the yarn room. Yeah. So, anyways, if you're crafting with me, if you're knitting a scarf, you're crocheting a shawl, maybe you're working on a sewing project, maybe you're just sewing on some buttons, maybe you're organizing your cupboards, maybe you're getting your kids organized for school. I don't know. How's your summer going? It is August, y'all. It's August. Yeah. We're towards the end of August now. Oh my goodness, last half of August. Summer's almost over. Woo! So, how's it going for you? Are you someplace where it's hot? Are you in the northern hemisphere? Yeah. I'm where it's warm. It gets warm here. We did have a few cooler days. We even got a little bit of rain, which is like unusual for us in August. It is. I live in a place where we don't get a lot of rain in August, but we did get some. I'm very grateful for it because I mentioned before, I live in wildfire country. And so really grateful that we have made it this far, right? Without like major wildfires really close to me. So they've been close ones, but not like super close. So I'm feeling really grateful about that. So, anyways, let me know what fun stuff you all are doing for the summer. Like, do you have anything left that you got to get done, right, for August? Any big plans? So, where I grew up in like central eastern Washington State, and it's a small town. It's a rural town. Um, and the fair just happened, y'all. The fair just happened. Did any of you go to the county fair when you were kids? Oh my goodness. I used to love going to the county fair. When I was a kid, when I was a teenager. Oh my goodness. Well, if I am being visually impaired. I don't know, like I explain it in some of my videos, but not all of my videos. My visual condition is called optic nerve hypoplasia, and so that just means that my optic nerve stopped developing before I was born. And so I have a really primitive visual system. So I am blind by light because the cells in my eyes that see in the daytime are not connected to my brain. But some of my cells that see at night are connected to my brain. So that's what I see with. I kind of see, maybe a little bit of what, some of y'all see at night. Like high contrast things. And, so I can actually still read large print for a little bit at a time because, most of it's high contrast, that kind of thing. I can still see shapes and shadows really well. Can, like see the shapes of trees and see the shapes of buildings and stuff like that. It'd be like at night, when you might see like, oh, there's a tree there. You can see like, oh, there's a house, but you can't tell if it's, blue or gray, or you can't see the color of it at night really. And you can just see like headlights, and that's kind of what I see. So, but I used to love to go to the fair, and it was one of those places that I knew so well because it was like sensory overload, right? It was all my senses. It was cool. Like, I mean, sensory overload in like a good way, though. Like, it engaged. Like, sometimes sensory overload can be like bad, right? Like, you're like, ooh, it's too much and it's overwhelming in a bad way. But, sometimes things can overwhelm us in good ways too. Like, right? Like, where we get excited. Like, you can be good overwhelmed too, right? But you can also be bad overwhelmed. So, but that was a good overwhelming, meaning that, even though I could see at night, which I loved, right? Loved being out there at night because I could see all the lights from all the rides and stuff. So I used to love to go on the rides at night. I was like, ooh, I can just see everything, right? When you're up high, especially even when I was a teenager, I used to go on the Ferris wheel at night because I could get way up high and I could see the lights from everything. And so I was like, wow, it would actually help me get a little bit of an idea of like, the orientation of the place and where stuff was just by being able to like see the outline of lights. And then it would help me in the daytime, right? Because I would then know I could build a map in my head of what I could see in the outline at nights and stuff. And so it would help me to like build a map in my head. And I was very used to doing that, of like, at nighttime picking up on different clues like light and shadow and shapes, and then using that to build maps for my daytime travel. So, but I loved it there. Even in the daytime, it was a place that I could navigate completely. I did use my cane sometimes when I got older, but ooh, you want to hear a funny story about that? Oh my goodness, y'all. So I sometimes used a cane. Got my white cane. Well, let me think. How old was I when I got my white cane? I was 10 when I got my white cane because I was in the 5th grade. I was living in Spokane, Washington at the time, and I got my first white cane, and I got instruction from the school district, right? And by the way, if you are visually impaired and you're tuned into my channel, I am knitting the pink. If you're brand new, if you're a returning viewer and you're visually impaired, then probably that's in the blanket. It's the pink 6-row feather and fan blanket that I just put out the tutorial for on Saturday. But anyways, so I got my first cane when I was 10. But when you're 10 and in the 5th grade, I mean, you don't always want to use a white cane, right? Because I was mainstreamed in public school, and I was the only kid in my school, right, that had a cane, and sometimes it felt different, and sometimes it felt awkward, right? So I didn't always use it when I was 10 and 11 and 12 and 13. Yeah, I didn't always use my cane. So, because it was like, I just didn't always feel comfortable. It's like the kids already knew I was different. It was like, did I really have to use this thing and make even bigger of a deal, out of it? So, whenever I could, I would like hold on to like, the arm of somebody, or, the hand of a boyfriend or something like that. Hold on to my sister's arm. She was very used to that. And our closest friends were used to having to hold on to letting me hold on to their arm and all of that. So I didn't always bring my cane with me because I didn't always feel comfortable with it at that stage in my life in all places. I just, I struggled then to feel different. And I got over that for sure. So I didn't bring my cane with me always to like the fair and places. If I was gonna be there with my sister and our friends, right, all the girlfriends hanging out and pairing up and going on rides together, I wouldn't bring my cane with me because I didn't feel like I needed it, and I could really orient myself by smell, right? You could smell all the greasy carnival food. You could smell the elephant ears. Ooh, I love the smell of elephant ears. Oh yeah, right. And we grew up in a rural area, so a big part of the fair was also like livestock and sheep and horses and cows and all the animals, so you could smell when you're near the animal barns, right? I love the animals. I love to go in there and pet all the horses and pet the bunnies, even though I'm allergic to them. um and pet the sheep and pet the goats, and I was always in there touching all the animals. So you could always smell them, and you could smell the different foods, um and you could smell like just the different areas, right, and the things that were happening. You could hear the performers. There's like a stage area, and you could always hear that. So there was just always different sensory things going on in that environment, right? The sound of the noise of the rides, right? They always have their sounds. So it was a place that I could get around uh pretty good, right? Without a white cane. It's like, okay, now I'm headed towards the carnival area. Um, it was one of those places where I just was like, okay, the people, right? Navigating the other people was like the most challenging thing for me. When I didn't have my cane, right? Other people didn't know I couldn't see them. So that was my big issue. So, but I realized as a teenager, though, I usually just rely on holding my sister's arm or my sister's hand or, somebody else's arm. So we were there one day with some girlfriends, right? Pairing up, going on the rides. And my sister loved the zipper, and I could do a lot of rides. Like I love the tilt-a-whirl ride, and I love the scrambler and that kind of stuff. But I don't do the upside down. I love like the teacups, right? But I didn't do upside down. Like I got issues with my eyes that already make me feel dizzy. Sometimes I got really bad nystagmus and feel like my eyes, like I can't even see straight half the time. And so, going upside down was always like, ugh, it's too much for me. So I didn't go on the zipper. And my sister's friend didn't go on the zipper either. But, I had a good friend that loved the zipper. So my sister would go on those rides with her. And then, I and her friend would go on, rides that didn't go upside down. So it's like, for whatever reason that year at the fair, it's the only year that they had it too. I don't know where it came from or why they had it, but they had this really big old like wooden double Ferris wheel that had these two wheels that rotated, and then they rotated around each other as well. And so I always liked to go on that at night because I could really get a neat perspective of sort of the layout of the land by being able to see all the lights and stuff. So it really, it was something even as a teenager that I loved, because I was like, ooh, I could see everything. Gave me some cool viewpoints, as much as I could see. And so we're there, and we'd been there all week. Like we'd been going to the fair all week. My parents would give us money to get a bracelet, right? And we'd go on all the carnival rides and and that kind of thing. So we'd go there and drink milkshakes and pet horses and go on carnival rides. So it's like towards the end of the week. I think it was the last night of the fair. I'm pretty sure. And it was like gonna be, probably like, close to like 11, and probably gonna be close to our last rides. And my sister's heading off to the zipper and, wait in line there. And I'm like, let's do the double Ferris wheel one more time, right? So, so we'd been going on this ride all week. And, even though I don't bring my white cane to the fair, I do wear sunglasses. And I know that's like a whole controversial topic in the blind community, right? a lot of blind people don't wear sunglasses, and it's sort of like a stereotype that blind people wear sunglasses, so other blind people say we shouldn't wear them because then it stigmatizes us. But I do wear them because I am light sensitive, because light is truly painful to my eyes. So I do wear sunglasses when I'm outside, which is, you know, why sometimes I have to be really careful with the light when I record in here, and why I prefer to record in the evening time, right? To me, it's way more comfortable to record in the evening, right? When the sun's not out, or when the sun's going down, and you see me in here sometimes like adjusting the drapes and being like, oh my goodness, you know, trying not to have too much light on the camera for you guys, and I can't have too much light or it's really painful for me. So I really prefer to, you know, to work in the evening, and to work when it's dark, and knit and crochet when it's dark. To me, that's like perfect, right? Because, you know, I knit and crochet by feel. And so, but I did wear my sunglasses when I'm out of the house. I don't wear them in my house too much. But, you know, some days I feel like I should, because the light can be uncomfortable for me in the house. But whenever I'm outside in the daylight, like when I leave my house, I got the shades on, okay? Because I have to in the sunshine, because I can't even open my eyes even with the glasses on in the sunlight. So I've been going to the fair all week, right, with the girls, and we're all palling around, and I got my big old shades, and I wore big shades. Like, I wore the big wraparound that would go all the way around, you know, the full coverage. Like, everybody used to think I had Oakleys, which I couldn't afford Oakleys, but I had a cool pair of, like, knockoff Oakleys, so they actually look pretty cool. So I was wearing those sunglasses all week long, right? Like all week long. And I wear them day and night because, you know, it didn't make a difference to me at all. And so it's like our last ride, and we're on the Ferris wheel, and we're going around, you know, it's the last night, and you know, and he's like unloading the ride, right? And reloading and getting new people on. And he totally bypassed us, like just left us on. And we're like, cool. We're getting a free ride, right? We're getting to the end of the week. He's feeling generous. We've been, you know, he's saying hi to us by the end of the week, right? Like, you know, we're not like creepy friendly, but, you know, hi, right? So we are, so he leaves us on, and we're like, cool, we're going again, right? And then, you know, it happens again, and it's been like a third time, and a fourth time, and he's just leaving, just unloading and reloading. Everybody else is getting off the Ferris wheel, and new people are getting on, and he won't let us off. He'll talk to us sometimes when we go by, and he'll say something to us, and it's really loud, and I'm like, what's he saying? And I was asking my friend, and she's like, I can't read his lips, and it was super loud, and the music was loud, and I'm like, what? Because he'd slow us down, so he knew we were there, and he'd say something, and I'm like, what does he want? What's he talking about? And then my sister gets back from the zipper, and, you know, she's ready to roll, because, you know, it's getting late, and we were supposed to be home by 12. Yeah, we were like teenagers. I think I was like 13 or 14. My sister was driving at the time, so I had to have been, if I was 13, she could have been just 16. She was 2.5 years older than me, but we could have been 13 and 16, or 14 and 17. We might have been 14 and 17. I don't remember, but we were teenagers still. We were still in high school, because we weren't in high school yet, because school hadn't started for the year, right? But it's August, and so, you know, we're driving my parents' car, right? And they're like, you guys gotta be home by 12, right? Because, you know, we were teenagers. And so, you know, my sister's ready to go, and she's standing at the bottom, and she's like, you know, starting to get impatient, right? So she picks up her keys, and she's like, you know, my friend who's with, my sister's friend who's with me, she's like, Her sister's like waving the keys, and I'm like, So then I start yelling at him. He starts like, just keeps us on there, and I'm like, hey, we gotta go. And he just is laughing at us, and I'm like, what? So I'm trying to get his attention and being like, our ride wants to go. And I said to myself, I'm like, what is it? She's like, he's gesturing at you. He's like pointing at you and gesturing at you. And I'm like, oh, what does he want? What does he want? Right? And she's like, I don't know. I don't know what he wants. And I was trying to figure it out, and then I'm getting impatient. And so I was wearing like these slip-on sandals, right? Like slip-on sandals. I like literally kicked off my shoes, and I like didn't even worry anymore. I'm like, now I look at that and I'm like, oh my God, I could have hit somebody in the head with a sandal. I can't see, and I'm kicking my shoes off, right? Trying to kick my shoes off of him. I can't lie. I was like trying to hit the Ferris wheel operator in the head with my shoes, right? Because I'm like, hey, we gotta go. You can't like keep us on the Ferris wheel forever, right? So I was asking my friend, I said, what's he doing? What does he want? And she said, he keeps doing this thing. And I'm like, what thing? She's trying to show me the gesture that he's making, right? And he's like doing this thing. And I'm like, what is he doing? She's like, I have no idea, but he's pointing at you and he's looking at you. And I was like, well, show me what the dude's doing. She's taking my hands and she's showing me that he's got his two hands out and his fingers, and he's holding them up to his ears, to his face. And he's pointing at you, and he's moving his fingers from like up by his ears, and he's pulling them down. And I'm like, what does he want? What does he want? And so we've been on the Ferris wheel for like 7 times. And I'm like, what? We're going by it, and I'm like, what? And he's like, your shades, your glasses. And I'm like, what about him? Because it's like 11:30 at night, and I'm still wearing them. He's like, your eyes. I just want to see your eyes all week. I haven't seen your face. I haven't seen your eyes. He's like, you're pretty. I just want to see your face. I want to take off your glasses. And I'm like, what? So yeah. So we rolled by him, and I took off my glasses. And on the Ferris wheel, and I take off my glasses, and so he can see me. So after 8 times on the Ferris wheel, he's finally unloading. I'm like, there, are you happy now? And he's like, yes, thank you. I just wanted to see your eyes. I just wanted to see your face. I've been, all week, I wanted to know what you look like without your sunglasses. And so I had forced to ride the Ferris wheel 8 times. 8 times in a row, with my older sister at my ride, down below, getting impatient, worrying, because she's the responsible one, right? And when I had my glasses off, he let us off. He was just like, thank you. I've been waiting all week, And I was like, that's what he wanted? He's like, yeah, that's all I wanted. So I was like, talking to my sister, I'm like, is that what that gesture was? She's like, I guess he was trying to like mimic, like show you. He wanted the glasses up, and I missed it completely, y'all. I missed it completely. And so, but that was really, it was funny, obviously, right? It's comical. It's funny. I mean, it didn't, we didn't end up getting in trouble, thankfully. If we'd gotten in trouble with my dad, it would have been a whole nother situation, because we did get home after 12. We were home after curfew, which, was a big deal. But we were good kids, and thankfully, bless my daddy. My daddy worked hard. He worked really hard. And he worked on his feet in the kitchen. And so when he'd come home, he'd go to bed sometimes. Sometimes he'd try to wait up for us in the, in the family room in front of the TV. But my daddy's a morning person. And so, he'd finally gone to bed. And so, thankfully, right, we weren't in trouble. And so that was a relief. That was a huge relief that, my daddy'd fallen asleep. so we were not in trouble, because had we been in trouble, that would have been a whole nother situation. But, it was really like a reflective point for me, right? Because, I thought, you know what? Had I had my white cane with me, right? This man, first of all, he probably wouldn't have never, he would have wondered why I had my glasses on, my sunglasses on. Because, most people, when they see a white cane, they understand, hey, this person can't see me, and that, a lot of, some blind and visually impaired people do wear sunglasses, right? Including myself. And so, I was wearing them, right? And so he probably would have known then, okay, she's wearing them, because he didn't know. I didn't have my white cane with me at all. So this man had no idea that I was visually impaired at all. And it was really sort of like a reflective point for me, even at that stage, even in my teenage years. And I was not, the most, self-reflective teenager. I don't think most teenagers are. I had some self-awareness. I did have the ability to, think back on situations and learn and grow. I wasn't, super self-absorbed teenager, but I was a teenager. So, but it really was a reflective point for me, because it made me realize that this man didn't know that I couldn't see, right? That I couldn't see him gesturing. And that happens all the time to me as a teenager, right? Like kids at school would be all mad. They'd be like, I'd be Monday, and they'd be like, hey, I saw you safely. I waved. And, they'd be mad. Like people were sometimes like legit mad at me, thinking I was snubbing them because I didn't wave, or I didn't come over to say hello at whatever event, or they were like, I was working over there. I saw you this weekend. You were in there and you didn't even come over to my register, whatever. It was like always, like people thought that I was, snubbing them all the time, as a teenager, and like a lot of awkwardness happened in my life because people didn't know how visually impaired I was, right? Including this stranger who was, working this Ferris wheel, who I don't think I've ever seen again and wouldn't know if I had, right? I wouldn't recognize him, and he probably wouldn't recognize me with my glasses off, or so, but it was just this stranger encounter, one-time encounter, that really left me with the reflective point of thinking, like, had I had my white cane with me, right, that sent a message to the world, to other people, that I can't see them, that gesturing at me isn't, that's not a way to communicate with me, right? Like you got to use your words, right? Gesturing at me it's not a way for us to communicate. Like those nonverbals, we can't communicate that way. We can't communicate that way. Like you have to be, like you got to use your words, right? But this man didn't know that, and why would he know that? Why would he know that? Just any other teenager in my little short shorts and my little sandals, which I then had to retrieve, right? I had to like figure out where my shoes were, and thank God I didn't, kick somebody in the head, kicking my shoes off. That was like a really stupid, 14-year-old thing to do, right? Talk about self-absorbed teenager, like can't see what I'm doing. And I'm like, I'm just gonna kick the right operator in the head with my shoe and be like, let me off. I mean, it was a very irresponsible thing for me to do. But, I was like 14 or something. And like having a moment there, like, why am I trapped on the Ferris wheel, right? Like, not that I wasn't having fun, because it was fun, like the first and the second and the third and the fourth time, going round and round, getting like bonus rides, right? That was fun. So, it was all good until, I realized that our curfew was going to be approaching, and my sister was the driver, and she was getting impatient because she knew she was responsible for us. So, but it really made me realize that, the white cane obviously helped me to stay safe in the world, right? It helps me to make sure I don't bump into stuff and I don't fall off at curbs or anything like that. But more than that, it says to other people, this person's visually impaired, right? And it says to them, like, gesturing at them is, is pointless. You got to communicate with them in other ways. And it also would have explained to him why, why I was running around at 11 o'clock at night with some big old sunglasses on, right? So, anyways, I just was thinking about that because, it was like the fair. It was the fair. And no, I didn't go this year because I'm not at home. I'm at home, at my home, right? I'm where I live, which is not with my parents. My parents live about 100 miles from me. If you're a returning viewer, you know that, right? Because you knew that I went on my little vacay, my little vacay at the parents' house, and hung with the family. And so, so I don't live in my hometown anymore. So I wasn't there to go to the fair and kiss all the horses and, eat all the ice cream and, ride the Ferris wheel, 8 times. I don't think that would happen again because, because I would probably have my white cane with me, and then the guy running the ride or the lady running the ride would be like, yeah, she's got her sunglasses on. Yeah, I don't need to gesture at her, right? But it made me realize, like, I actually had a sighted person there to interpret the situation for me, right? And how many times when I didn't use my cane have I missed people gesturing at me, right? Have I missed people who don't have the capacity to use their words, right? Who think that they're going to communicate with me visually, right? That's ineffective, right? You got to use your words. You got to talk to me, right? But, when I didn't have my cane, and some people, don't get me wrong. I've had 3 guide dogs, and let me tell you, not everybody uses their words. Some people are pretty dense. I'm just going to say it. They're like, I have been gestured at and know it because I've had other people with me who are like, oh my God, he's, she's, motioning you, or she's pointing. Like, how many people point? People do the over there thing, over there. I'm like, over there, and don't nod your head in a direction. Don't point and say over there, right? Use your words. So anyways, I am at the end of row number 3. If you've been doing these little like sitting and stitching and knit alongs with the blanket, I like to do my 3 knit rows with you all. And I could do a purl row. If people want these longer, I could purl with you if you're doing the blanket. But anyway, we got our 3 rows done, our 3 knit rows done. So I think I'm going to go. But that was just one of those moments that I was reflecting on when I was thinking about, it's the fair week, right? And I was like, that's one of those moments that is going to stick with me because, it was a lesson to me that if I want people to communicate with me verbally and use their words, then guess what? I need to have my cane out there or my guide dog or whatever in some way that says to them, hey, this lady can't see me, right? So anyways, I just thought that was kind of an interesting thing that people might think was, kind of a fun, and it is funny. Okay, it's funny. I'm not even gonna lie. I'm like, ooh, yeah, that's funny now, right? I had to ride the Ferris wheel 8 times in a row because some guy wanted to see my eyes and my face. Yeah, it's pretty funny. So anyways, alrighty. Well, you know what I like to end with, right? Creativity is for everybody, whether you see or you see like me, where there's not so much and not in color and not in the day, or you don't see at all. Creativity is for you. And whether it's knitting or crocheting or sewing or quilting or beading or sculpting or painting or weaving or carving, whatever it is that you do, today is a great day to craft and create. Thanks so much for listening. Until next time. Happy stitching. Bye-bye for now. And hey, do you want me to turn the light on so you can see the 3 rows that we did? Want me to do that for you? Okay. Hang on. I can accommodate the sighted because you know what? I think it's gotten dark in here. I do. I can tell it's gotten dark in here. So hang on. I'll turn the light on. Oh my goodness, y'all, it got dark. These are my 3 knit rows, right? If you're following along, if you watch the tutorial, you know that row 3 is the lace row, right? And then row 4 is a purl row. And then row 5 is a knit row. Row 6, we do another knit row where we do the garter ridge, right? And then we do row 1 and we start all over. So when I hang out with y'all and stitch, we do rows 5 and 6 and 1 together. So I just did those. That's where we're at with the blanket. Anyways, I really don't know if you're going to see this video because I didn't realize how dark it got and towards the end, and I don't know how long it was that dark. So anyways, I'm going to say bye-bye for now. Happy stitching, and who knows if you'll ever see this. All right, bye.